All right, last time we talked about pumps, the dynamic heart of a process plant. Today, we're going to shift gears and look at the plant's metabolism, the heat exchanger. Now, these are the static workhorses, the things that manage energy and regulate temperature. There are no moving parts, no vibration to worry about. But don't let that simplicity fool you. From a layout perspective, they are deceptively complex.
When you look at a heat exchanger in a 3D model, it just looks like a cylinder on a couple of saddles. Simple, right? But that physical footprint, that's just the tip of the iceberg. The other half, the dangerous part, is invisible. It's a reserved kill zone of empty space that absolutely must stay clear for the entire life of the plant. If you violate that space, that piece of equipment becomes pretty much unmaintainable. So let's break down the critical logic of tube bundle removal and figure out how to orient these exchangers to prevent some major layout disasters. Okay, here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll get into the basic anatomy of an exchanger. Then, we'll define this critical bundle removal zone. After that, we'll talk about the logic behind how you orient them and provide access. We'll also look at some really common maintenance failures. And then finally, we'll wrap it all up with a summary of the key layout rules you absolutely need to know.
So let's start with the basics. To really understand the layout, you've got to understand the machine itself. Now, there are a lot of types out there, plate and frame, air coolers, but the real workhorse of the refinery and petrochemical world is the shell and tube heat exchanger. It's really made of a few key parts. You've got the shell, which is just that large outer cylinder. Inside that, there's a huge cluster of small tubes. We call that the tube bundle. And then the ends are sealed up by what's called a channel head or a bonnet. The whole concept is beautifully simple. You have one fluid flowing inside all those small tubes, while another fluid flows around them on the outside within the shell. And that's it. That's how you transfer the heat.
Now here's where the operational reality kicks in. Over time, those fluids, they get dirty. They leave behind deposits, things like coke, scale, or sludge. This whole process is called fouling. And when an exchanger fouls up, it just stops transferring heat the way it's supposed to. The only way to fix it is to open up one end, pull that entire tube bundle out, and clean it. And this is the central constraint that drives your entire design. You aren't just placing a cylinder. You are placing a cylinder that has a massive removable core that's often 6 meters long and can weigh 10 tons. And that brings us right back to the other half of that iceberg, the bundle removal zone. See, when the maintenance crew needs to pull that bundle, they don't do it by hand. They bring in a massive piece of specialized equipment called a bundle puller, which is basically a truck or a crane attachment that latches onto the tubes and just drags the whole thing out horizontally. So to make this real, let's just think about a typical tube bundle. It's often around 6 meters long. That's about 20 feet. As the designer, your job is to treat that entire extraction path as mandatory, protected, completely clear space. So here's the crucial point. The space you need isn't just the length of the bundle itself. If the bundle is 6 meters long, yeah, you need at least that much empty space in front of the channel head. But in reality, you actually need more. You usually need the bundle length plus an extra 1.5 meters or so, just to give the extraction machinery room to maneuver. We call this the bundle pulling area. In your 3D design model, you have to treat this space like a solid block of steel, a digital keep-out zone. No piping can run through it, no instrument stands, nothing. Because if you decide to route a 24-inch cooling water line right through this space, you're forcing the plant manager into an impossible choice during a shutdown. Either he has to cut your pipe, or he has to leave the exchanger dirty. And believe me, both of those options are incredibly expensive. Okay, so if this clear zone is absolutely mandatory, where do you point it? That simple question is what drives the entire orientation logic for the equipment. Let's see how this builds out into a standard layout practice that you'll see everywhere. In a standard process unit, shell and tube exchangers are almost always arranged perpendicular to the main pipe rack. Think of the pipe rack as the central spine of the unit, and the exchangers are like the ribs coming off of it. We always position the channel head, that's the end where the bundle comes out, to face away from the rack, pointing towards an access road. This layout is really elegant because it does two things perfectly. It keeps the piping connections short and direct, and it gives maintenance a wide-open path for their mobile equipment. And this slide really shows you the difference. With the correct perpendicular layout, that channel head faces an open aisle. The bundle can be pulled straight out, no problem. But if you orient the exchanger parallel to the rack, you end up blocking your own extraction path with the exchanger right next to it. This creates a maintenance domino effect, a nightmare where servicing Unit A means you have to remove Unit B first. That is just unacceptable layout logic.
Now, despite how simple this rule is, we see it get broken all the time. let's look at a few common ways that really simple, overlooked obstructions can create incredibly costly problems later on.
The single most common failure is a grade-level obstruction. So often, designers check for clashes up at the nozzle elevation, but they completely forget about the ground. You have to remember that bundle puller is a vehicle. It's a truck. It has wheels. If you put a lube oil skid or a sample station, or even just a concrete catch basin in the path of its wheels, that truck simply cannot get to the exchanger.
The second common failure is davit interference. That heavy steel cover on the end of the exchanger, it doesn't just pop off. It hangs on a special hinge, kind of like a small crane called a davit. When that cover swings open, it swings wide. You have to make absolutely sure that no vertical pipe runs or structural columns are going to block the swing radius of that davit.
And the third common failure is overhead clearance. Sometimes these bundles are removed by a mobile crane lifting them out. Well, if you route a big cable tray or a large flare line directly above the exchanger's center line, you've effectively put a lid on the equipment. You've completely blocked the crane's ability to get in there and make the lift.
All right, we've covered a lot of detail here. Let's go ahead and summarize all these rules for heat exchanger layout into a really clear set of takeaways for your design practice.
First, always design for disassembly. That two-bundle is a removable component, period. Second, the bundle pulling area is a mandatory non-negotiable exclusion zone. Third, orient your exchangers perpendicular to the pipe rack and make sure the channel head is facing the access road. And finally, you have to check for obstructions in 3 places: on the ground, within the davit swing radius, and directly overhead.
So we've spent our time talking about the major equipment that sits on the ground. But what about the arteries of the plant? The things that connect all this equipment together? That's the pipe rack, the multi-level highway that runs through the whole unit. In the next explainer, we're going to dive into pipe rack routing and elevation strategy in real-world EPC projects.